All righty. Good afternoon, commissioners, and over to Harrington.
Thank you, Clerk Moss, and welcome everyone to the Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 work session for the board. I just want to note, but I'd rather do it now. The formal agenda items discussion is item 5 on our agenda, but I want to make sure that if folks have any questions or comments on the formal agenda, that staff has time to get to that. Clerk Moss and I did sort out just before this meeting that there is not going to be an item 12 on the consent agenda. So the consent agenda will consist of just the 21 items. But beyond that, do any commission members have any questions that we should get to sooner rather than later?
I reviewed it and I'm good. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, me too. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll get right into a couple of clean water services items. The first being the CWAC recruitment briefing. By the way, we have the full contingent, all 5 board members here.
Fabulous. Good afternoon, Clean Water Services Board of Directors. Elizabeth Edwards for the record. I'm here before you to announce the beginning of our recruitment process for the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission. I know that you all know, but for any members of the public that may be listening, the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission, or CWAC, is a 15-member advisory committee, voting, 2 non-voting, made up of 5 members serving geographic areas, 2 owners or managers of businesses other than land development or construction, 2 from the development community, 2 from the environmental organizations, 2 from agricultural interests, 1 non-voting member from Clean Water Services, and 1 non-voting member representing cities within our district boundaries. CWAC is incredibly important. The members of this advisory commission donate their time and expertise to work in partnership with this board and with staff. I'm sure you can imagine, this group ends up being also a fabulous microcosm of our community because of the makeup of the commission. Members serve 4-year terms starting October 1 to September 30th, and approximately a quarter of the seats expire each term, so we do it on a rolling basis. So therefore, I'm before you today to announce that we have 4 seats that will expire at the end of September this year. And given the number of vacancies, we wanted to come before you a little bit earlier than usual, just to give ourselves lots of runway when it comes to recruitment. So the 4 seats are our Agriculture 1 position. George Marsh was appointed to this seat back in October of 2021. Wonderful member of CWAC. He's since retired and will not be seeking reappointment to that seat. Our Builder Developer 2 position. Builder developer representatives must own or work for an organization located within our service area. Matt Wellner was in this seat. He was first appointed in 2016 and reappointed in 2021. Most recently, he was our vice chair. And Matt let us know that he will not be seeking reappointment, so that is an open seat. The District 2 position is one of our 5 seats representing geographic areas. Ramesh Krishnamurthy was appointed to District 2 in September of 2022 to fill a partial term. He also joined our budget committee this year. He is actively engaged and interested in seeking reappointment, so we will encourage him to reapply. And last but not least, our district at large seat. So this seat is occupied by Nisha George, who was appointed in November of 22, also midterm. And we are still determining with Nisha if she would like to seek reappointment for the seat, but we'll be reaching out to all of you. We have big shoes to fill.
I would like to see her in the role again. The prior individuals did not serve a complete term or beyond 1 term, so I think it would provide for good continuity.
Thank you, Chair. That's excellent feedback. So here's what to expect going forward. The application is now live on our website, so we're letting you all know, letting the public know. We will work with your offices to get input on potential applicants. We are also working with the outgoing members to seek their input on who would make for good folks to fill these roles. And we will conduct a robust outreach strategy over the summer using social media, our website, local chambers, CPOs, outreach to partners like the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation Districts. So we will do all of that outreach. And we will keep the application window open through Friday, August 15th. So full summer, lots of time. Staff will then review and verify applications, and we'll be back before you in September with recommendations and then full board appointment of new members before the expiration of the September 30th terms. So that's all I had this morning. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but this is just really kicking off the process.
Board, any comments or questions?
I just want to clarify, I think I know the answer to this, but the district, the things that are labeled district with a number, those correspond to the county commissioner district? Or
That's
the
correct.
board? Okay.
I don't have a question for you, Elizabeth and Herndon. Do you have an initial reaction or like a comment but you said it really well. You said these are big shoes to fill, and I agree with you because as a former member on the Clean Water Services Advisory Commission, I did see the wealth of knowledge and the level of participation that they bring to the committee and just the enormous embracement of the subject matter of big shoes to fill. I agree with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And if they have questions at all, who,
Please reach out to me or Shannon Huggins.
terrific,
thank
thank you
you.
very much. Okay, Kathy Leader, the CWS Audit Committee recruitment. First time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and members of the Clean Water Services Board. I'm Kathy Leader. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Clean Water Services. As you may remember, back on March 18th, the board approved the formation of an audit committee for Clean Water Services and established bylaws. As part of those bylaws, the committee is to have 4 community voting members, 1 board member, and 2 employee staff, the non-voting, so myself and our audit, new audit position. The terms are from May 1st to April 30th of each year for the individuals. They serve for 3-year term and 2 options to re-elect for them or appoint for them. The individuals, we did a similar to what was mentioned for our CWAC committee. We did an aggressive outreach. I knew this was going to be a hard committee to fill. We did some of the similar outreach through the social media, along with connections at Westside Economic Alliance, Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, Beaverton Chamber of Commerce, community participation organizations, and chief information officers in the area. My finance team, we also reached out to individuals in the finance community, trying to recruit for this. And we got 3 applicants, 3 very good applicants, and we will continue to try to fill that 4th position. So these are staggered terms. So we'll have 1 at 3, 1 at 2, and 1 at 1. And the individual at 1 does have the opportunity to reapply for a 2nd term on the committee. In your packet, you have a copy of the bylaws and then also the applications and resumes for the 3 individuals that have applied for the committee. They all 3 of them come with many years of finance and participation on other committees. They come as strong candidates, so I highly recommend these individuals. I'll be coming to you on June 17th to actually appoint these individuals.
Commissioners, directors, do you have any questions on any of these? I know good job on the recruitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I actually know, I'm just like, without knowing it, I know 2 of the 3 people relatively well or have worked with them. So.
Who are those?
Well, Michelle Waring back from, she worked at Tigard when I was a budget committee initial budget committee member. She's not been there apparently since 2007, but her and then Scott Winkles from League of Oregon Cities.
And I've worked with Peter Parmenter, both, I know him through Pacific Corps, but also he's on ERMDAC and very active and engaged partner there. So
You might know he's on the Washington County Audit Committee also.
Yes.
He agreed to participate in our committee.
Brings me to my question or point. I'm wondering if anyone has done an analysis on how many different audit committees there are for the jurisdiction, the whole area of Washington County. And, but more specifically, I'm wondering to what degree do we, especially out of our finance teams, or even HR teams, encourage folks to serve on audit committees for other organizations.
As far as just promoting community participation.
Yeah,
overall.
yeah. And I do know from personal experience in the Washington County Audit Committee, but also with the Metro Audit Committee when I was a Metro counselor, that there's a lot of information to read in a set period of time. But if we aren't encouraging our own to serve, then how can we expect or hope for others to serve on ours? So I figured I'd better bring it up at least and inquire. So I don't mean to put anybody, Johnny, on the spot.
I did serve on the Park District's Audit Committee for quite a few years. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I don't know if every local jurisdiction is required to have an audit committee or if it's just of a particular size or.
No, you're not, and it's GFOA best practice to have a committee, but it's not required.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few that don't have
Yeah.
audit committees.
Yeah, but not just for our CFOs. I mean, members of your staff, for example, or anybody else who we're trying to help encourage to learn more about public budgeting and so forth. Because you're not alone, right? There are many eyes. Anyway.
That's a really good question. We can take that back and talk with the staff. And this also highlights, I appreciate Jerry, you bringing up HR, because as the board knows, we had a challenge finding HR professionals for our salary commission too. So that expertise in finance and HR is highly valued.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Yeah. This will be coming to you on June 17th for appointments.
Great. And their first fiscal, so this brand new audit committee, the first fiscal year that they'll be looking at will be FY25.
Yes. Yeah. So we should be having our first meeting in mid-July. Interim would have already happened, but we'll still meet to do the initial, and then the final will be, and it usually in December.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So it no longer needs to be done with all the Washington County stuff. It's all part of the independent treasury, independent setup and whatnot.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, isn't it nice to be a little ahead of time, but I don't know if that means for the library and public safety levies preliminary proposals, if our outside person is going to be, inside the building, in person. Hey, that's awesome. Great. Well, come on up, everybody.
If I can clean up my face here.
Philip, you can come on up to the table if you'd like, but if you'd rather sit back there, feel free.
We may be doing some switching.
Oh,
So yes,
well,
thank you, Chair.
I can move down a little bit if colleagues want to move down a little
I
bit.
didn't need it.
I'm not sure they're listening.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board. I'm Erin Calvert, one of the assistant county administrators, and it's my pleasure to be up here at the table and also in the room with plenty of great professionals, including Marty Kyle, another assistant county administrator, Philip Bransford, communications officer, the Tattersall, the WCCLS manager, Aaron Doyle from GR, our public safety partners, the sheriff and undersheriff, and our guest, Ian Stewart, and maybe his team online, I'm not sure, from EMC Research. It turns out that the preparation and work of the library levy proposal and the public safety levy proposal is a team sport. And what you're seeing today is a culmination of a lot of work, many contributions, including the work of all of you, our board as well. And so we will get started. We have a pretty robust agenda for you today. And in our time together, we're going to review the most recent polling results. We're going to remind you of the planning work that's been happening with our steering committees and others. And we'll provide a brief overview on both the library and the public safety preliminary proposal. It's going to be a mouthful. And then talk a little bit about next steps. We do have 2 policy questions for you all today. That is, should staff bring the library levy preliminary proposal and the public safety preliminary proposal to this evening's board meeting for approval, and or what further information does your board need on these proposals? And with that, it's my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Ian Stewart and his team from EMC Research.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Nice to see you in person. So this, as you recall, we had some discussions in the committee groups about when we should do this work. So we recommended that you space this out. And I think that has shown some fruit. We're going to see that here in a minute. Remind you what we did on this survey. So this was a survey of 2025 voters, likely to vote 2025 voters in Washington County. We did it the 8th to the 15th of May. The sample size is a little different here. So in breaking things up, we had to reduce the sample size a little bit. The sample size here is 400 interviews, which is smaller than what we showed you last time. We actually split it. So the 2 levy replacements take turns going first with 200 samples each. That's about a 7-point margin of error. We'll talk about that when we get to the interviews. This was conducted the same way, though. So it was a multimodal approach. We're using a combination of phone, email, and text to web to get to our survey. So some people are filling it out online, some people are doing it over the phone. You can see the other 2 surveys that we're comparing to all the way back to December 24, and then that largest sample there from January poll 800. So varying margins of errors. But again, our idea here was lots of economic volatility. What has that done to our outlook? So the good news here, and I think you could almost, if you've been reading along, you could probably surmise what's going to happen based on what I showed you here, the right direction, wrong track. We told you last time we spoke that the right direction, wrong track is closely linked to support the measure. And the good news here is, at least at the moment, the right direction, wrong track numbers are holding steady, and people aren't feeling, voters in Washington County are not feeling particularly concerned about the economy right now, right? So the right direction, wrong track is staying strong. However, that doesn't mean they don't see something coming. So here's the dark cloud of that silver lining. We asked a question here. We said, thinking about the future, do you expect economic conditions to be much better, the same, somewhat worse, or much worse than they are today? Almost 2/3 saying worse, 30% much worse, and 34% somewhat worse. This is not great news for what might be coming, but it indicates that maybe today, right now, people aren't feeling it yet. So I don't know what shape this is going to take 6 months from now, right? That's the biggest concern I think we all have is like, what do things look like? Does this come true or does it not come true? And that's these economic volatility that we're all dealing with is a challenge right now. Very few on the same, only 23% better. So big split here on this question. And I think it's I would call it a yellow flag. We don't know where the economy is going to go, but if this comes true, we're in a much different place than the right direction, wrong track, which therefore is a much different place for us. We added some questions this time that you didn't see last time. So we asked questions on favorability, and the idea behind favorability is to get a sense of what are people's general attitudes towards a government entity, an institution, sometimes elected officials. In this instance, we asked a few of these, some that are relevant to our survey. The Washington County Library System, as popular as, well, not 86% total favorable, only 8% unfavorable. I'm not sure if those people have library fines or what they're upset about. 8%. I don't know what they're upset about. But only 8% unfavorable, 3% of that strongly unfavorable. So if you look, the dark blue here is the most intense positive favorability, and the dark red is the most intense unfavorability. Washington County Public Safety Services, very similar rating overall at 78-16, a 62% net favorable rating. But you can see a bigger proportion of this in the somewhat favorable rates. The intensity is dropping off a bit here, but almost no increase in the negative unfavorability, right? So from 3% 6%, not a huge increase. So still really popular overall. You also probably had questions of what's been happening in the county with other news that I've seen. So we asked Washington County government as well. The good news here, it's still positive, 64% favorable, 30% unfavorable. You'll notice the intensity drops off significantly here. But a 2-to-1 favorable to unfavorable ratio is actually a really healthy place to be for a public entity. Just for comparison, the new Portland mayor is 51-27 on the same rating, right? So barely above water. The Portland City Council, 40% favorable, 41% unfavorable. So if you're trying to get a sense of where you compare, right, for another kind of entity, then you've got it now. You feel pretty good about where we stand right now in terms of our relationship with the voters in the Washington County government. Now, obviously, this is generic, so there are other parts of the government that may not feel as good about, but overall, this is a pretty good and healthy place to be.
And these were from January 27th through February 5th.
No,
This is the last one. Okay. And what are the dates, the exact dates on that?
Previous slide.
5th through 16th, I think.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
May 5th through.
So early May, basically. So that should give you a sense of, if there's any negative news that was going to hit, it has been consumed and put into circulation right now. I'm sure that if we were to ask about various entities within the county government, we might see different ratings. But overall, this is what we're seeing.
Thank you.
Okay. We also asked some questions here on an agree-disagree scale, trying to get a sense of where people are feeling about the use of their tax dollars with the same idea, right? We want to understand what's happening. I generally oppose tax increases of taxes regardless of what they're used for. 56% disagree with this. It's a good place to be for us to think about. A majority of voters in the county that are likely to vote in November 2025 are saying, no, I disagree that I would oppose any tax increase. That's really good ground for us to be on, right? It shows a receptiveness to taxes generally in the county. The second one, I trust Washington County will properly manage tax dollars. This is a really important question right now to understand how people are feeling about this. 53% on the agree side. Now, granted, this is a lot closer to 50-50, right? Especially if you go back a minute, look at the favorability. This is a much tougher question to answer, right? It's a higher bar across. And of course, the rating does come down a bit, but it's still a net positive. Given everything else that's happening in the county, to have this still be a positive number, I think is a good sign. Sorry, I have one other crosstab I want to share here. So if you look at those who agree that they trust Washington County to spend tax dollars responsibly, 83% support the library measure, 79% support the public safety measure. If you are on the distrust side, the disagree, 35% support the measure for libraries and 38% for public safety. So the split is there, but it's not 1-to-1, right? So not everyone that is on the negative side is also opposing the measure. Does that make sense? So this is getting a little confusing because we split sample things, right? We let the public safety and library measures go first in equal parts. So what you're seeing here on the screen on the left is what happens when the library measure goes first, right? So that person is going to hear libraries first, full measure, then public safety second, full measure. On the right side, you can see what happens when the public safety measure goes first. There are some small, not terribly significant, but small differences. So if you're looking here, if the library measure goes first, support staying right around 60% for both measures, opposition right about 37%. If the public safety measure goes first, public safety starts at 57%, and then libraries goes to 61%. So if you're tracking, and we'll do this individually because I know this is a little hard to follow, we'll look at libraries individually just to give you a sense of this. But there are some differences when you see which one goes first. In this instance, the support levels are actually a little bit better when the library measure goes first versus. So we'll dig into this a little more in a minute, but I think there might be a question.
But I guess the way you're interpreting this, which seems important at this point, like the margin of errors, I mean, is it powered to really tease that out?
The margin of error is coming into play a little bit, but when we look at the library measure specifically, if you're looking at public safety, look at the public safety bars, right?
Yep.
Public safety is 63%, 37% when library goes first, 57%, 42% when public safety goes first. The difference there is 6 points in support lower, and it's 5 points in opposition higher. That's essentially right at the margin of error difference. So yes, it's not outside of that measure, but it's close, right? So there is some kind of effect. It's not a major effect, but there is some kind of effect happening here. This survey, we actually had people hear the entire library services and the entire public safety measure. They're much longer ballot titles when we actually put them on. So people will actually see this entire thing on here. And in fact, it actually ends up benefiting us. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But they read and or hear this entire thing. Now, obviously, if you're reading and you're on the phone, you're not going to get everything out of this, right? That's not our intent. Our intent is what are the big pieces you're taking away from this? The bullets, I think, are a big piece of this. What you're seeing highlighted here in bold is not bolded for them when they're looking at it, so they're not, that's not being called out for them. But we want to show you what the entire library support measure looked like, and then do the comparison here. So what you'll notice is, as we talked about a minute ago, it doesn't kind of matter the order for library, whether it goes first or second. The support is just about the same, right? Both overall and in terms of intensity, you're looking at the strongest support, just about the same, right? We can't make a margin of error argument in either one of these, but there's a big difference for library and what order it happens on the ballot. Now, in terms of support over time, the other thing that's interesting here that we're looking back to January and February, now we are seeing some difference in support. So when we read the full ballot title, look at the strongest support in May, right? We gain about 6 points in terms of strongest support. So the support level is the same, but the intensity goes up a little bit. Now, again, this is also right on that cusp of margin of error, right? But when you take the full sample in effect, there is a little bit of benefit we get from reading the whole thing. And you can see why, right? If I hear about the library measure, I know what's included. When I get to read and or hear the whole thing, much more comfortable with what I'm seeing here and saying, yes, there's something that I can like in this measure. Okay. So in this survey, we tested a very short version of components of the measure. We cut it down significantly because of the time that we had to test the entire measure here. We tested essentially what we thought were the 3 highest performing from both last time and this time. And you'll notice the importance here for all of them is over what the measure support is. Measure support was right around 60%, and all 3 of these are above that. So if we're going to talk about what's in measure, these 3 are clearly the leading candidates here. There's not a lot of intensity behind these. It's 34% in the extremely important. We rate this on a 7-point scale, right? So we're looking for intensity measurements here. 34% for the top two items and 28% for the third. But in total, anything over 4, that's the importance of this scale, right? Rating over 4, they're all above 60%. So those are the ones we're going to want to be talking about. So after we hear those components, not a lot changes. If you look at the library measure when we ask it initial, and then after the information I just showed you, we get to 59.41 and 58.42. We do add one component here. We push back on the measure by saying, all right, taxes are too high. People are struggling to keep up. That really has very little effect on what's happening in the measure. You can see the strongest support is kind of staying the same. Both it's a slight drop off, but it's within the margin of error. Same thing for whether the library services go second. So not a huge change even when we push back. So that tells me some of that negativity is kind of already baked into the conversation. So we showed you this last time. I'm going to show you again. We've added 2 more bars. There's a polling to the overall picture. The dotted line there is 50%. And then the election outcomes every time you've asked about the libraries are shown historically in the green. And then the polling is shown in the blue, right? And obviously, everything was put into one poll in previous. We've spaced things out here quite a bit. We're also showing you different asks on the same survey, right? So the 1224 and the 125, those are in the same survey, right? The 2 125 numbers are in the same survey. But we're kind of holding consistent here. The library replacement in 24 had at the highest number at 67%. We're much closer to 60 now. It seems to be our equilibrium we've settled into for libraries in a historical context. And we've also marked for you there at the bottom what the ask is, right? Is it 32 cents? There's a slight decrease from the 32-cent number to like a point or 2 difference between 3 cents. Okay, moving on to public safety. This is the public safety full measure. It's also really long, but it also in some ways benefits us from having all this on here. We have a chance to hit all the highlights. A lot of work went into what should be on this levy. I would not say this is the final language. If you wanted to tweak it, you probably could, but this gives you a sense when we actually test this, what's the reaction to it? Here's the 24 language and the January language. I just want to show you by volume how much different that is. I think you know that, but I just want to show you. Really different in terms of what people are actually seeing, hearing about the measure itself. So we talked about this a few minutes ago. What happens when public safety goes first? There it is on the left in the B split when it goes first at 57.42. When public safety goes second, it was 63.37 in the other A split. So that suggests to me that public safety second is probably a better place to be, with libraries going first. If you think about logically, we're sort of leading in with the softer question, a public good first of the libraries, not too controversial, and then we get to public safety where there might be more controversy. So I think that's part of what's going on here in the overall sample. But again, as we talked about, not a huge difference in overall support whether it goes first or second, but it is enough for us to notice. So this is the same question tracking this over time. We're seeing a kind of a similar effect. If you look at the December 24 test, the January 25 test, and the May 25 test, the intensity is sort of increasing every time, right? We see the strongest support in December 24 at 20%. And then it's been increasing sort of every time since. And I think a lot of that has to do in the last question with being able to read the entire thing. You know a lot more of what you're getting as opposed to a very short description. That's helping us a bit in terms of the overall intensity. And then the overall support being at 60%. Again, margin of error wise, not a huge difference, but it is noticeable, right? That we're increasing that overall support and the strong support kind of each time we ask this. In this survey, we actually had a chance to do a little bit more on the public safety. This is the one we all thought deserved sort of more time to ask what was important in here. What you're noticing here is the importance is actually quite a bit higher than the libraries, right? We're looking at anything over 4 into the 80s and higher, way higher than our support levels. So there's clearly some impact here that we're seeing that we can talk about that is increasing support for the measure the more we talk about it, because it's showing a wide interest of people thinking these are important components. A lot of these are familiar to you. We've tested them in the past, but it's really showing you how powerful the public safety items are in improving support and sort of improving intensity of support along with it. So now looking at what happens when public safety goes first and second after that information and after the negative pushback. So the initial is shown whether it goes first or second, right? On the left side, it's going second. On the right side, it's going first. So not a ton of change if we're looking at the public safety going second, and not a change if the public safety goes first. So what this tells us is ballot order matters to begin with, but not later on, right? At the end, we pretty much end up at the same place, regardless of which one you're on. That 61 and 57 support after information, kind of the same. So most of the impact that we're seeing is the initial. But that matters because a lot of people are not going to hear all this information. We're delivering them not perfect information because it's not everything, but clearly a lot of people, voters will stop at the beginning. They won't hear everything else, right? All they'll see is the ballot vote on it. And so that's why that initial support does matter to us, at least a little bit. Just like I showed you with libraries, same tracking question here for public safety over time. Again, the blue is the polling, the green is how it actually performed. And so we're kind of, if you average all that stuff, we're looking right around 60%, right? If we're combining things for the public safety, pretty good place to be, I think, assuming that the economy holds, right? And what people told us they think is going to happen doesn't come true. We'll have to watch that right direction, right track. But that's why we have another test set just before you set this to the ballot.
The other observation I would make here, you're not making a point of it, but like in every example, it appears like the election outcome outperforms the polling results. That's held very consistently. That seems important too to me.
Yes, I hope that that's the case, right? That it continues on that trend. But that's, I think the library measures, there's closer parallels, right? So and these are also different questions. We've never been at 66 before. So I think you're probably right that this is going to hold, but that's one of the reasons why we keep testing them to understand if things are holding where we expect them to be.
When we first went over in the Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Snyder and I are on the Safety Committee, was on before. That slide caught my attention about the public safety versus the library, but then, I sort of had a aha moment with myself to be like, of course people like their library, but then people like their safety too. So I just had more questions of like, how did people determine which, so it's not something you have to figure out, but I just had that question of like, I wonder what was going on in people's mind. They were rating positively when they saw the library and then rated the public safety versus the other way around. But I think we have our clear directive action to utilize the evidence base for the data. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah. One more slide, and then I can take other questions if you have them. So we do see some economic pessimism in the future, but it's not being reflected in today's right track. So at least for today, we're still in a good place. The two measures, again, we tested them side by side on purpose. We want you to understand where they're both on the ballot together, and people know that they're both there. What impact does that have? And we're seeing that pretty consistent support, even from last time, even with the economic uncertainty that we're hearing about. And that doesn't seem like there's a ton of difference based on which one they're presented with first, but there is a small one. We noticed that mode difference that suggests libraries should go before public safety. It's not a slam dunk. You could probably reverse them. It might end up being fine, but we do see some advantage there, so why not? But finally, the economic concerns that what we're hearing from people have not been reflected in that right direction on track. If that changes, right, this picture is going to change. And that's the biggest challenge. We cannot predict that future. We don't know what's going to come. Hopefully, it stays kind of like this. They're still good. But there is a final check on this plan just before to give you the last possible minute you can to see how it's doing. What other questions can I answer for you that I didn't?
Already asked mine or made my comments.
I have a question, and it's more about perspective. We were talking about the historical context here, and I'm looking back at the library, and in let's see, the 2020 poll, it was at 74%, and the election was 69%. That's the one where it reverses.
Trying to get back to that.
Okay, sorry.
Past it.
Flicker is slow.
It's
Yeah.
18, is that 18?
Okay. Clicking one at a time to get there. There we go.
So the one in the very middle
Yeah.
is the one aberration. But what's interesting about it is the rest of them are generally like 5-point spread. And this is kind of going from a 5-point positive to a 5-point negative, which is a 10-point.
Yeah, it does stand out. And what, that's, I think that's also why when we've been looking at this and saying, yes, there's been consistent support, but will it stay?
Yeah.
What happened in that measure that's different?
And we don't know what happened in that measure.
I don't. There may be someone in the room who was around that could tell us what.
COVID.
We also had a global pandemic. Really,
Oh,
right at that
really?
moment. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that.
Are you disappointed in a 69% outcome?
No, I'm just looking at the screen. But I agree. It's not
Well,
something to worry
by
about.
comparison, the polling for the public safety measure was at 51%. So we weren't really disappointed. In
And
something too positive.
That was the same election. So, but I think the point is, public safety went that way, libraries went that way. So,
Well, I mean, libraries weren't a place you could really
Go.
go at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
I think that
And
played a
we
role.
didn't know.
Right.
Well, and public safety was in the spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
with the riots in Portland and just coming on to
Those didn't happen
Don't-
until
That
the
was later.
following
that's
summer.
21, but I think there was still
No, it was later that same summer.
starting to get a negative defund mentality, and ours went up because I really feel like people of Washington County respect our public safety a lot and appreciate how good it is. So I think that's kind of reflective. I think it'll do well in the poll. These are two things that the voters can actually tax themselves and have a choice in. What much of else goes on, either legislature does it to them or the feds do it to them. So, yeah, this is good.
Thank you.
Good work. Thank you very much.
Good to see in person too, Ian,
nice to be here.
You talk
Still
as
talk as fast.
Yeah.
I get a lot of information.
I'm glad we know you're the same person.
No face there.
No, no.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board. Just for the public record, I'm Marnie Kyle, one of the ACAs, and WCCLS has recently come into my portfolio, and I've been really thrilled, learning a lot. I'm here today with Lisa Tattersall, the WCCLS Director, Erin Calvert, the other ACA, and as you all know, her portfolio includes the public safety and justice. So this truly is a one Washington County approach to passing both of these important levies, and I've really appreciated the team and you all in your approach to that. I also want to say thank you to Lisa, Erin Calvert, Philip Bransford. He's not at the table today, but we would not be here if he had not been supporting us all along in this process, and Aaron Doyle, who all have stepped in with long hours, strong leadership, and tenacity in getting these proposals to this point for your consideration. Just a reminder, all of this was done in the middle of and on the heels of the budget committee work. So I think, I guess my watch wanted to make sure I knew what time it was. So I'm just really proud to be a part of this team, and it was well done. At this point in the presentation, Lisa and Aaron are going to briefly walk you through the two proposals. They're going to answer any lingering questions and assure that you're comfortable and ready to move forward with adoption in this evening's board meeting. So we can go to the next. So as you can see on the timeline, we're moving toward the final steps. In your meeting this evening, we will be asking you to consider approving the current preliminary public safety and library levy proposals. We'll return to your board on June 3rd with draft ballot titles and explanatory statements for your approval at that meeting. Then we will do a final voter survey in July, and your board will consider possible referral in August. So before I turn this over to Lisa and Aaron, I want to acknowledge and thank members of both the steering committees. The steering committees provide critical input in the development of all the important steps in the development of the levy proposals before you today. The steering committees review the financials to make recommendations about the levy rates. They advise staff and EMC on the timing and polling questions. They've reviewed polling results and made recommendations and have been critical in the development of these final proposals, really spending hours with us in developing that. Their expertise, relationships with partners and stakeholders, and commitments were all critical to this process and ultimately to the outcome we are seeking from our voters. And with that, I will turn it over first to Lisa and then to Aaron.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Hello, Chair and Board. I'm Lisa Tattersall, Manager of Washington County Cooperative Library Services, or WCCLS, here to provide you with a brief overview of the preliminary library levy proposal for fiscal year 26-27 through fiscal year 2030-31. Libraries are Washington County's living rooms. Public libraries create a sense of social connection. They support climate resilience and offer lifelong learning and development, preparing children for school and fostering a strong workforce in our county. Libraries are a beloved community asset, and they deliver vital services in a time of increasingly complex community needs. Libraries provide free family activities and community gathering spaces for civic engagement. We also help people access social services, community resources. We help people connect to the internet, access technology, and become digitally illiterate. The library levy provides key funding for our system in Washington County. Library service is delivered in a partnership between the county, 9 cities, and 3 nonprofit organizations. WCCLS is a department of the county, and we provide the primary funding for libraries in the system, as well as support services and critical infrastructure to link these independently operated libraries into one countywide system that's available to all residents. This partnership is known as the cooperative. The current library levy provides 45% of the revenue for WCCLS in fiscal year 24-25, and the remainder of WCCLS funding is a transfer from the county's general fund, which is determined through the annual budget process. The current levy rate is 22 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, and the current levy expires in June of 2026. This proposal recommends replacing the current 22-cent levy with a 15-cent increase to 37 cents per thousand. The new levy, if referred by your board to be on the ballot this November, and if it's approved by voters, would be effective July 2026 through June 2031. Next slide, thank you. Staff have been providing your board with regular updates and seeking your board's direction on the funding and governance process that WCCLS has been undertaking with our cooperative partners. The goals of this process are to improve service consistency and access across the county and to support community needs by creating a library system with a fiscally sustainable future. The library system in our county relies upon the contributions of every partner in the system. There's a strong commitment to partner collaboration in this data-driven process under your board's leadership. The levy proposal references recommendations that have already been brought to your board out of this process as recently as February 4th, where we reviewed base service levels and the cost to deliver those. This funding and governance work with our partners is ongoing, and that's alongside this levy referral process. The recommendations that have so far been supported by our partners and your board out of this process are foundational elements that are built into this proposal. The proposed library levy replacement supports the work done so far and supports your board's overall goals for the funding and governance process. This supports your board's goal to address funding allocations for library operations and ensuring that all communities have access to a consistent base level of library service. The proposal reflects our partner agency's need for a sustainable funding source for library operations and provides some stability in economically uncertain times. The proposal also addresses the increasing cost pressures that libraries are under as they provide service to a growing and diverse community with increasingly complex needs by increasing the efficiency of operations and service effectiveness. As you heard in the presentation by EMC earlier, the proposal recommends a levy replacement rate of 37 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, which is an increase of 15 cents over the current rate. This estimates that we estimate that the total 5-year revenue would be $188.9 million, and that the first year revenue in fiscal year 26-27 would be about $34.7 million. For the average homeowner in Washington County, the first year's estimated levy cost would be around $129, and the estimated monthly cost in that first year for the same average homeowner would be $10.75.
I think it's important to note there, Lisa, that that's an all-in. That's 37 cents. It's not additional.
Correct.
So yeah, let's make sure we
Yes, that's
communicate
the total.
That.
Yeah.
The proposed library levy replacement would help maintain and provide access to core services, including reading and learning support for kids and teens, including homework help for students, central services that efficiently link libraries together so users can browse collections and reserve materials for pickup at their nearest library, open hours and access to books and materials for everyone in the community, and children's reading events, including story times. I'd like to thank the Library Levy Steering Committee, Commissioners Treese and Willie, for your time and input in developing this proposal, and Marty. This proposal is supported by the Steering Committee, and staff had a chance to provide briefings to your board individually last week on the draft proposal. So with that, I'll share the policy. Wait, are we doing the policy questions? We are doing this one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. We're policy questions for your board today on the library levy. Should the library levy preliminary proposal be approved as presented at the May 27th board meeting this evening? And what further information does your board need on the library levy preliminary proposal? Thank you.
I want to go now.
I was gonna say if we'd have done it in May, we'd be done.
Small problem of raising the money.
Next.
We kind of missed that deadline. I don't need any more information.
I don't either. We're
Very well planned in both cases, I think, but uncertainty is uncertainty. We'll get to those dates one day at a time.
I just want to say that obviously I support this and I really appreciate and the work that was done, and I looked forward to our meetings. We always had active, really full meetings, and I appreciated all the input from Ian and his group as well. And they were, we had a lot of debates. We went from 10 to 15. We made a lot of changes, but I never felt that we did it out of context. We were always together and really thought through a lot of stuff. So thank you for all that work.
Yeah, and just to follow on to that, Lisa, Pam asked a lot of questions. No surprise there, but good questions, and you were able to provide a lot of good information. We got down into the weeds about cost per library and all kinds of things, but it was good information. So congratulations to you and your team. You really did a great job.
Thanks.
Jerry asked a lot of questions.
wow. Me too.
Well,
I think it's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
We've been at this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we'll move on then to the public safety levy preliminary proposal, which covers the same timeline from July 1st of 2026 through June 30th of 2031. The levy provides critical funding for the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Office, Community Corrections, and Juvenile Services. Each of these departments playing a distinct but interdependent role in maintaining public safety in Washington County. The current public safety levy provides about 16% of the revenue for the public safety system in fiscal year 2024-25. The current rate is 47 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, and the current levy, of course, expires in June of 2026. This preliminary proposal continues a thread that we've all been talking about a lot since the public safety briefing paper was written, and even before that, actually. And that is the notion of how the public safety ecosystem works in Washington County. We know that one part of the system can be significantly impacted by the other, and as cases flow from the sheriff's office or law enforcement into the district attorney's office and out to either community corrections, probation, or post-prison supervision, or juvenile services, informal supervision, or formal probation, there is an interdependence on these services that the court and judges can impact, the availability or lack of availability of defense attorneys, and unfunded or underfunded state mandates that are passed on to the county. A well-functioning public safety system requires coordinated support across all components of the system. Next slide.
That's a very complex slide, but it tells the story just by looking at it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The preliminary proposal for public safety replacement levy focuses on many of the key challenges that were identified in the briefing paper. Those things our community is facing, a number of those challenges that could threaten public safety, including substance abuse disorder, jail capacity issues, increasing workloads and caseloads, the continued struggle again to address unfunded mandates, and then just making sure that we provide funding for a workforce that can deliver on these services. In addition, we know that our general fund revenue has not been able to keep pace with our expenditures and the increasing costs of delivering the current service level. And like other departments at the county, public safety has faced multiple years of reductions, which have impacted service levels and workloads. This hasn't allowed the system to grow commensurate with community need, which is impacting the caseload and workload sizes. This levy proposal underscores the need for current and enhanced public safety service levels and continuous improvement called by from your board, as well as the public safety and justice leaders in the county. It's also supported in the focused work of our government relations team, which is also supported by your board and by other partner agencies. Next slide. As you heard as part of the presentation by EMC Research, this proposal recommends a levy replacement rate of 66 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. It estimates the total 5-year revenue at just over $329 million and estimates the first year revenue at just over $60 million. For the average homeowner in Washington County, this first year's estimated levy cost would be around $230. And Commissioner Willie, to your point, that's an all-in, not an additional. And the estimated monthly cost in the first year for that same average homeowner would be about $19.17. The levy, next slide. Thanks, Marnie. Levy funds will continue the core functions of public safety, and this measure will enhance funding for a wide range of county-wide public safety services that include prosecuting child abuse and child pornography cases, combating the impact of deadly drugs like fentanyl and dismantling drug traffic organizations, preventing domestic violence and expanding emergency assistance for victims that are harmed by it, fully funding the jail to keep those with most dangerous charges in court-ordered custody, investigating and prosecuting theft, car theft, break-ins and graffiti, and preventing crime with mental health response teams, job training, employment, and addiction services that help keep youth and adults from returning to the justice system. Next slide. So as you viewed the public safety levy preliminary proposal, it's also recommended by the Public Safety Levy Steering Committee, who I also want to send gratitude to all the work that everyone on that committee did. But I'll do what Lisa did and also bring the policy question back to your board about should the public safety levy preliminary proposal be approved as presented at tonight's board meeting, and or what other information questions does your board have?
I don't have any questions. I'll just note that the estimated monthly cost in the first year for an average home is a heck of a lot less than I pay in insurance for my home, my cars. And wow, what a great investment. And I'm super proud of all the people across our county, but also our county government that do this work each and every day. I don't need any more information. I just need it to be on the ballot and election to get here as quick as it can.
I want to thank the committee for letting me enter midstream. I mean, I'm sure that was somewhat disruptive, but I asked a lot of questions to begin with, and I'm sure drove all the team a little bit wild at the beginning. But thank you for tolerating that, and I think we got to a really good place that I feel strongly about both advocating for and being able to help communicate more broadly. I don't have more questions, and I think we need to move it forward.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I don't have a question for both Levies, and I want to also extend my gratitude to you all. You know, when we first started this, I was skeptical about the increase because I was really centering my own wallet and trying to figure out that the average residents out there also can relate to that. So I think, but you brought us along and you show the data and you show the journey of what our county needs and what the future looks like. And I just want to commend the amount of work and the amount of education that you all embarked on to bring all of us together to say this increase is worth the investment, and not only say that, but show the investment. And I tell you that I had a lot of internal conversation with myself, and I think I appreciate that for educating me and bringing me along to this increase. There's a lot happening out there, and this is quite the investment, but it is a worthy investment for our public safety. So I want to commend you. And I'm in support of moving it forward and coming it in front of the board. And here's a live example of raising a family while also serving. I have to step away and pick up my kid from school, but I will be back for the executive session and might miss the next topic. So that's why I'm stepping away, but I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
The way the team worked collaboratively too, I mean, both elected leaders that are not on the commission and the department directors, you know, I think that's a space where this group has a lot more work it has to do compared to the library. And that team, I think, worked really well together. And that's not easy to do with so many sort of competing groups. So Sheriff, I know you're here, and Under Sheriff, thank you, and to all the other department directors and
Thank you.
the DA.
I'm very supportive here. I do appreciate that as we went through this, we were in two parallel paths,
Yes.
but there's a lot of cross information courtesy of staff and everybody. So that really helped kind of calm my fears about going for two at the same time. How do you do that? But I appreciate the work that your team did as well as the work that the library did. So we're going to go get them.
Great, thank you. We do have a couple wrap up next step slides that I'll just you've seen. So we'll just go as quickly as we need to. If that'll move. This is a slide that's really familiar to your board. It's just recognizing the place that we're in now with briefings, transmitting proposals, coming back before your board for an approval this evening, and then the work we'll do following this summer.
Question.
Yeah.
Will the preliminary proposal go to the Secretary of State or just the final?
I believe just the final. Oh, the proposal. Sorry. The the ballot language will just go.
No.
When does anything go to the Secretary?
Let's go.
Can we answer an affirmative question? When does information go to the Secretary of State? Just repeated head nods. No, doesn't help. Leave me with anything.
Yeah, the only thing that under statute that, we would want to pursue, well, let me put it this way. statute doesn't require us to have the Secretary of State's office vet the ballot material, but the collateral, like the direct mail piece, the handouts, anything regarding the either levy that public employees are going to do on public time, this organization has a practice of taking the safe harbor program, taking that opportunity with the Secretary of State's office to have them review what we're proposing to say to the voters. And then they come back and say, well, if you make these changes, we'll give you a safe harbor status. That's definitely something that we will pursue from the public, organizational side of the outreach.
Timing though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course you do. So the timing for that will be, yeah, so sorry. So the timing for that is going to be as we come out of the last round of the survey work that Ian and his colleagues at EMC.
July?
Yeah. So we'll be in the field there from July 21st to August 1st, and that will put us in gear. Now we can start ahead of then. And I think we have some pieces that are about ready to go to the Secretary of State, but in earnest, that's when we're going to start churning out the review with the Secretary of State's office.
So for sure by early August. Okay.
Yes.
And the draft ballot title and explanatory statements will go to the Washington County Elections Office then, or does that too wait? until final?
That'll wait until your August, I'm going to say 12th.
Yeah, it's right up here on the slide. So we'll come before you next week on June 3rd for that preliminary title, do the polling in July, and then come back to your board when we know a little bit more and can do and ask your board on the 5th. We'll do another work session like this, polling results, tweaking of any of the proposals that we need to do, and then come before your board on final ballot titles and explanatory statements August 12th.
And that's where we would be officially sending it.
Officially, because it is an August 15th deadline. So we'll be ready to go for filing.
Thank you.
And I think that wraps us up.
Can I just make one comment about the filing as I thought about this and the sequencing? We should make sure we file the library one first.
Right.
Okay.
The evidence suggests that right now.
Yeah, unless the polling. Sorry, I know I'm stating something that may be obvious, but
No, it's good.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. And we are well ahead of schedule, folks. As in almost an hour ahead of schedule. So our next item is only a half an hour. Are we okay with pressing on?
Trying to locate half the team right now.
Okay. Well, I think we would have a problem if we don't come back for another hour. So
Board updates.
I was just about to ask Miss Angie and Mr. Greason if they were prepared for that. Okay. So, Erin, we're going to take board and leadership communication first. Who would like to go first amongst leadership of the three of you?
I can go first.
Great.
I actually don't have much for your board today. Just a reminder that following all the cycle that your board is on with working as a budget committee and then approving a budget as your board of commissioners here in another couple weeks, we sort of see similar pattern in our departments where lots of contract renewals and agreements come up for consideration and renewal around this time. So our office is very busy prioritizing that work so that we can get those things done before the fiscal year turns over. Other than that, I just wanted to say we are also working very real earnestly now in getting ready for Mr. Barnett to join us in just 2 weeks' time, doing the practical things like making sure he has a phone and monitors and things like that. And he and I continue to have good conversations every week. And in fact, we have one scheduled for this Friday while he is en route to Oregon on the road. So preparing and with great excitement. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. So just a couple brief updates from me as well. We're taking a sigh of a bit of a breath after the Budget Committee meeting. So just thank you to the board and also Budget Committee members in the extensive reading and studying.
We have
all
one
did.
more to read.
Yes, you do. Yes, the House
Authority.
Yes, the Housing Authority budget.
May 30th, here it comes.
So elections update, our elections division has done a great job in processing over 87,000 ballots so far for the May 20th election. The current turnout percentage is 22% of registered voters. Weekly updates of the results will continue on Friday afternoons until the election must be certified by June 16th. This evening, during your board meeting, just a heads up, I do need to leave at 8 p.m. So if we are done if we're not done at that time, one of the ACAs will be sitting in for me. I am taking the red eye to Florida for the Florida City County Management Association in my role as ICMA president. And I try to take red eyes to maximize my time so that I can also be taking meetings then during the day while I'm traveling. And as a reminder, all costs, travel, lodging, etc., are paid for ICMA or my personal funds, no county fund. During this time, Marnie Kyle will be serving as acting for the president. My update.
During the time differential, you're going to get there just about in time to start a meeting, aren't you?
I'm efficient.
You're young and you could do that.
Okay, you have uneventful travel
Yes,
to
thank
and
you.
from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Water Services Board of Directors, you'll hear similar comments from me.
You're going to Florida too?
No. I will be out later this week in California. So, but Florida sounds lovely. No, I was also going to echo my thanks for all of your work on Clean Water Services budget. We know that you had 2 meetings on our behalf before we got to an approval with our budget committee last week, and there was a lot of material that we worked to produce. So thank you so much for your engagement, feedback, great questions. And also just want to reiterate, we heard loud and clear that we're going to be doing some additional work looking into low-income assistance and bringing back information to this board. We're also going to have a deeper discussion and evaluation on looking into our own billing, and also we'll be coming back on June 3rd for a board discussion on rates and charges. So we have some next steps related to the discussion on Friday. Also, I sent an email to the full budget committee on Friday, just highlighting, Chair, thank you so much for the call out on our billing explainers. We have pulled that information just for a brief respite as we are making some final updates, and we will be pushing those back out on our website. So we will send an email to the budget committee affirming that they are back out there with the full complement. So there's that. I was also very busy emailing on Friday. So switching gears, we got a big update on Scoggins Dam last week from the Bureau of Reclamation. The local project beneficiaries received news that the Bureau was intending to shelve the project as contemplated and instead move forward with just improvements to the spillway. So we have the spillway and we have the earthen dam. There was fear that reclamation would move forward with a non-structural approach of just a reservoir reduction, which would have been really damaging to the region. It would have halved the amount of water for clean water services for water quality purposes, and that water that remained would have been warmer. So when you're using that for temperature control, that's a really big deal. We have concerns, right? We're still trying to evaluate what next steps look like, but I think we have some time. And our federal delegation is really involved. So you'll be hearing more from me on Scoggins in the coming days and, well, in the coming weeks and months, right? I think we're working on a federal timescale, but it's a really big deal.
Do you know if there's been any federal effect on the BF-FISC project?
I don't yet, but we also don't have, a permanent head of reclamation right now. We have a lot of actings, and this is a big decision.
Yeah.
So I think there's just And they're going through the budget process. So we anticipate that this may also be part of their budget savings because we were coming in at over $1 billion. And the spillway we anticipate to be under 300 million. Rough numbers back then. Public policy math is my predecessor. And then I touched on the fact that I too will be out for part of this week and next week. My colleague Joe Gall will be stepping in my stead. But I will also have all of my devices. This is a very busy time for Clean Water Services. So if you need me, please reach out.
Any other questions of our leaders? Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Board updates. Any takers?
Sure, I'll start. Because I'll get to say, well, we had budget meetings, and then we had budget meetings. We had budget meetings, and shoehorned in between the budget meetings was the library levy steering committee, of course, a renewal of meetings regarding timber. And so next week I will be in Salem for the Board of Forestry meeting. I believe that is on Friday, and that's a week from Friday. That's the 6th. So those have started up again, working with Oregon Department of Forestry and the trust counties and the forest trust lands. Again, trying to get ODF to work with us on increasing the harvest. Evidently, over the past couple of years, they have not met their projected harvest amounts, and so there's a huge concern about that continuing to go down. And then there's some other decisions that we have to make, and so we'll have that. We're going to have that conversation with the Board of Forestry in that June meeting. Let's see. PSCC meeting on last Friday, and thank you, Jason, for letting me sit in on that meeting.
Thank you for
it's always that's a great meeting. I really like that meeting. It's good. And let's see. First, we had air show a couple weeks ago. We had ROMAC last week, and the fun part, the best part, again, before you guys get to say it, I get to say that the Hillsborough Recovery Center ribbon cutting, since we were all there too as well. And my apologies for not introducing you on my part. So I didn't do that. I know that.
It's okay. I didn't either. So
we both pretty well ignored them is what we did. We let them get up and get the picture with us. So that was the important part.
Wait.
Anyway.
Get over
it. Yeah, live with it. Anyway, so that's about it. This week is a much better week. I got a couple of blank days so I can catch up on reading the 77-page forestry report. Oh. It'll be so exciting. Anyway, it has some projections for Washington County in it that are not very good. So anyway, that's all I got. And Julie McLeod's party on Friday.
We're going to go do it.
I can go. Tuesday the 20th in the evening, I attended the Tigard City Council meeting and did my usual interaction of soliciting input and answering questions. That went well. Wednesday the 21st, there was a Community Action Board meeting in the evening. That all went relatively uneventfully, other than I will report that they are seeing similar kinds of language in their grant things that perhaps other organizations are experiencing. So that was just noted by me. Let's see, Thursday of last week, the 22nd, I had a one-on-one with the county administrator. We had the cat ribbon cutting. I didn't notice that we weren't particularly pointed out, but thank you for passing out to that commission.
My FUPA.
Then I had my interview with the salary commission, and then on Friday, I had a library levy briefing, the final one, a one-on-one with the Clean Water Services CEO. I had lunch with the South City's mayors, which is a thing that sort of predated even me being mayor, but I got invited to come, and so I had lunch with some of them. And Mayor Bubanek and I, when I was mayor, we were sort of the facilitators of that group, so it was good to be back with that group. But then I had to hustle to get here for the Clean Water Services budget committee meeting. That was challenging. Yesterday, Chair Harrington and I both were able to speak at the Memorial Day Veterans Plaza ribbon cutting in Tualatin. I thought that went really well. It was very
Beautiful sight.
nice, very nice, both ribbon cutting and just, I think, a good place for people in the future to do some reflection. Had a briefing today on the Urban Services Framework work this morning. Thursday morning, there's a annual Tualatin Chamber Key Leaders Breakfast that I will be attending and then hustling here to get to our CWS meeting. In the afternoon that day, I have a prep meeting with the LUT staff for Region 1 Act, but I am actually not going to be at the Region 1 Act meeting. I think the decision or recommendation from the county administrators that I attend ACRE, given some of the conversations that we're going to be having. So we will, unless we change something different, we will not have a representative at Region 1 Act on the, the 2nd. The LUT staff are aware of that and don't have concerns, but I wanted to just point that out in case that's important to folks. Friday of this week, I'm going to be meeting with the Tigard Police Chief. He and I both have some shared discussions to have about, I think, work with the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency. I'm going to have a chat ski there. I also have a meeting, a chat, discussion, meeting, coffee, whatever you want to call it. I also have a one-on-one with Chair Harrington on Friday, and then the civic leaders graduation in the evening. Are we all going? Are we all attending?
We've all been invited.
Okay. And then I already indicated on Monday I'll be at ACRE and not at Region 1 Act.
The city of Tigard, is it last year? Didn't they have a bond measure to rebuild the city hall police?
It has not gone to the ballot yet, and I think they're now near as I can tell, they're targeting next May.
Okay.
So May of 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So your graduation is at the River House. So I thought there was more graduates than would fit into that small space. So, I mean,
about the event on, you're talking about the event on Friday?
Our staff assistants can track that down for us.
Yeah, I thought there was a bigger class, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to say good morning. It just seems out of context. Saying good afternoon. So I think I'm still kind of thinking about how I can use the word jet ski. So, like that. Just like everybody, these past 2 weeks have been really, really packed. But my hat's off to everybody who worked on the budget and the conversation around the table. I think our community budget members were fabulous. I really enjoyed the conversation and the sense of ownership that each department had about all of the issues that we face, both at the county and at Clean Water Services. So my thanks to all of you for your answering of our questions and the way you handled everything. Last week I did also attend the Celebrate Trade Gala, and that was at invitation, and it was a really remarkable event and really focused on trade in this area, especially around Washington County, and there was a lot of discussion about tariffs. Probably all know that I did attend the TV FNR Community Academy overnight, and that was great. I even had a fire, which was interesting, but the people there are fabulous. Pat, that celebration was just so darn cool.
The facility.
The facility was pretty cool. Yeah.
Reflecting back from, sorry, Jason, but the three of us in the start of that, thinking about the idea that was brought forward, thinking about concept of the opioid settlement and all that, it's just amazing to see it in real life. And boy, it just made me so proud.
And what proud of the three of you for helping make that happen. I mean, seriously.
I was
Makes a vision.
well in the cities who participated as well. So that just really made my week. right following that, I had to get on the RWAC meeting, and it was great that Mayor and Rebecca got me set up in the Department of Aging and Veteran Services right next door to handle that.
Oh,
So
good.
I got to tour that area as well and see, all the good work that they're doing. At RWAC, we had the time to share our input on the budget process. So there were some fits and starts, and the budget process, the budget actually for RWAC resulted at the very end when they committed to Metro Council. There is a commitment to underspend the WPES budget by 10%. And my problem was, well, how did that result? And I'm getting much more information from Erin Stein, and working with her has been great in relationship to RWAC. So I just feel like with Mayor and Erin Stein and Kathy Folsom, we've got a great team that have focused there. I have an upcoming meeting this week on the regional solutions team. We have to settle on what our focus for the metro region is going to be, and that should happen this week. I'm going to go on a ride along with Pride Disposal, just like you guys. I have my salary commission meeting this coming week, and MPAC this week as well. So, and MPAC,
I bet Pride doesn't let you drive the truck like TDF and
no, they're really funny about that stuff.
You got to drive the
Something about lifting up a garbage can, having the opportunity to move forward and then go slam down onto some poor neighbor's car. Yeah, don't think they want to give us that opportunity.
But driving a fire engine,
yeah.
And the difference between a fire engine and a truck is the toolbox, and the engine carries water.
Yeah.
So there you go. But
her application is in process.
Yeah.
But the weight of the water is
750 gallons. Yeah. It's amazing. And what I didn't realize is that when you're at a fire, the hydrant is hooked up to the engine. So I always thought that the hose went right from the fire hydrant to the fire, but it's the truck, or
it adds volume.
The truck is the pump
pressure
and the pressure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's really very interesting. So that's my report. Thank you for talking a bit about ACRE. That's going to be a very important discussion. And I really appreciate Tanya and all of the team, Alicia, everybody pulling together to make sure we have a good discussion around the parole officers and what's happening in that world.
So I have a question. This goes to MPAC. How many folks in this room lived here in 1990 or 1990 to 1993? Okay, so the reason I ask that is I had a one-on-one with Metro Councilor Juan Carlos Gonzalez, and one of the topics we touched on was Metro's future vision. And one of the things that struck me in being a resident here as Metro was going through all of its RUGOs and all kinds of new processes to develop the 2040 growth concept, that 50-year vision, was a household survey that they sent to every home. It was an 8.5 by 11-inch envelope, and it had one of those old IBM multiple choice things, kind of like our ballot, but that's how they did a survey. And Mark and I sat down at the kitchen table together and went over each of the questions and returned the survey. And I mentioned that to Juan Carlos because I was curious about how they might do community engagement, this being a whole multidisciplinary mode now. We didn't have social media like then. We had number 2 pencils. But they did have all kinds of community events and went to farmers markets, even though we have more farmers markets now, all kinds of things. But he didn't know about that survey or the development of the Green Book, as it's called, the 2040 Growth Concept Book, and all the different scenarios there. It really struck me how much historical knowledge has been lost as they embark on a new 50-year vision. And so I just wanted to share that so that if there's any review of what their roadmap is, their program over the next couple of years or so on the future vision, that we can do our part to make sure that we're getting the word out there before it goes by.
Delayed the beginning of that work too, right?
I don't know. I've not been tracking it at all.
Yes, they did. I don't believe that the participants have been.
They've not even seated the.
No, they haven't been announced yet, and they were supposed to be announced in January, I believe. There was an early application deadline of like early
You
December.
and I both applied, right?
Yes, we did. So.
Well, I hope they'll have some kind of forum, kickoff forum, speaker forum, and invite all, and I literally mean all of the elected officials from everywhere, because we can serve as champions. Development of a new plan.
Absolutely.
That's more than 5 years is a big deal. So, yeah, it's about the future and about growth. So what's that expression about the future is for those who show up, or I can't remember what the expression is, but there's a good one.
We can chat ski about it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow, it's right. Welcome to my world.
So I think the only other there was something that seemed so basic that I could mention in terms of a committee meeting I had that I'd have to pull my calendar back out to remember it. But like you said, budget. And there were some other meetings in there. Oh yeah, next Monday, I think it's next Monday, June 2nd, I'll be attending day 2 of the 2-day AOC board retreat. Kind of been rethinking that a couple of different times, but that other expression about if you're not on them.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
There you go. Thank goodness for other people who can remember the whole expression. It's kind of like remembering the punchline. Punchline, see?
That's right. This is starting to concern me. I'm finishing your sentences.
So anyway, here we are, end of May already. I can't believe it. I was having a one-on-one with Commissioner Fye this morning, and was reminded that we're only 5 months into the current federal administration, and it has felt longer than that. So,
I can't believe I'm only 5 months into my, or now close to
yeah,
6 into.
see how much net
I feel
positive
like,
effect you've had? You really have.
I don't know about that, but there's a lot that's happened since.
And you've been engaged fully in all of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It's been great having you on board. So terrific. Well, that's all I've got. So, can we take our break and then go to the topic? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So why don't we take a 15-minute break and then come back at 2:45?
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All righty. Welcome back, commissioners. Back to you, Chair Harrington.
Well, great. We're back from break, and so we're going to switch over to our 2025 state legislative update. Take it away, Erin.
Thank you.
Team, hello, team.
Who hurried to get to their computers and then
we went on break. Sorry about that.
they learned all about what you're up to, though. So
Failure to.
So thank you for having us here this afternoon to provide the next in our series of legislative updates. As we discussed the last time we were before your board 3 weeks ago, we're really going to focus in on the budget because that's where the process has turned. For your record, by the way, I am Erin Doyle, your Senior Government Relations Manager, and you have the contingency of both the Washington County and the Clean Water Services Government Relations Managers here with you today. So quickly, we'll start, as I stated, on the budget conversation, and then we really tried to focus in to make sure you were updated about any of those policy bills of note that didn't just get served as a written update, but we are always happy to answer any questions that you might have, which is our standing policy question for these. And with that, I will turn it over to Pablo to talk about the revenue forecast that will set the tone for the remainder of the 37 days left in session.
Not that anybody's counting.
Legislators are counting.
Yeah.
All of their updates.
Take it away, Pablo.
Chair Harrington. Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, my name is Pablo Nieves Valenzuela, Government Relations Manager for the county. So yeah, just to set the stage for our budget conversations today, I want to provide the latest information about the state's financial outlook heading into the upcoming biennium. So about 2 weeks ago, the legislature received its final revenue forecast of the session, meaning that this is the forecast that they'll be basing the state budget on. That forecast ultimately showed a $756 million reduction in general funds and a $42 million reduction in lottery funds relative to the last revenue forecast. So that means that there's a total of $798 million less in the funds that the legislature has the most flexibility in appropriating. And of course, that means that any proposed increases in state funding to various programs, they're going to face much greater scrutiny in the Ways and Means process.
Is it possible for us to, you don't have to do this right now, but I'd really like to get an email or something from the team that articulates what the general fund forecast and the lottery fund forecast is as compared to the last biennium budget. That's all.
Absolutely, Chair Harrington. That's definitely something we can get to you.
And I'm also wondering, or if maybe I should promote, we're doing less with less. Maybe the legislature should help us do less.
Require
less.
Duly
Not
noted.
that I like the word less. This message brought to you by the letter L. I'm sorry. It was a great
No, it's fine.
3-day holiday weekend.
Thank you for the dose of humor on, especially as we go through some pretty grim news here. So I appreciate that, Chair Harrington. So just to give you all some context, the state economists, they base their analysis on many variables, but really emphasize that the unpredictability of the current economic climate made their job a lot more difficult. So, since Oregon is particularly vulnerable to changes in international trade, ongoing trade disputes are a major concern that factored into this. Population growth was also revised downward to only 0.5% through the biennium. And since August of 2024, the unemployment rate has also been steadily increasing. And that was also, of course, a part of their analysis. So that's just a very high level overview of some of the key factors that played into their analysis. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, unless there's any questions. Okay. Yeah, so moving into the public safety and budget related budget priorities, public safety and justice related budget priorities. I want to start with the community corrections budget, which is included in HB 5004. Based on our conversations with AOC, it sounds like this budget is currently sitting somewhere in the neighborhood of $320 to $340 million. Of course, our ask, as you can see on the slide, there is 340 million. That range is above the CSL budget. So we are tentatively, hopefully expecting that to hold true. But of course, we're going to continue tracking that funding level closely and working with AOC and our other stakeholders, the community corrections directors, of course, to coordinate our last advocacy efforts for that funding. So next, I want to talk about juvenile crime prevention. This funding is used by our Juvenile Services Department, and we're currently focused on securing the funding level included in the governor's recommended budget. It's not a proposed increase over CSL, which hopefully puts us in a better place in terms of where the Ways and Means conversations are going right now. As I said, proposed increases are going to be less likely right now. But we are aware that this budget historically has been really vulnerable to cuts. So we are collaborating with the Juvenile Department Directors Association to make sure that we get the funding included in the GRB. Next slide, please. So looking at the OJD budget, law libraries. So we developed an $11.5 million ask in collaboration with other county law libraries across the state, with an understanding that there's a need to revise the funding formula to make the best use of available funding. Unfortunately, in the last few weeks, we discovered that there was more disagreement than we realized about revisiting that funding formula. And that disagreement has frankly undermined our ability to work as a coalition pushing for that ask. But nevertheless, Washington County is continuing to advocate for an increase to the CSL for county law libraries. Mediation and conciliation. So we are pushing for the current service level funding for that budget with the understanding that passage of SB 97, which I gave a short update on in our last presentation, that would increase the cap on marriage license fees and provide Washington County with a way to supplement state funding if there is enough need. So the current service level funding is 8.7 million, and we're pushing to have that fully funded. Looking at court security, again, this is one where we're just pushing for the CSL. That number is 10.4 million. Of course, with how grim the revenue forecast is, we can't be certain of anything, but again, since it's not a proposed increase, we are more confident in that budget line item. Next slide, please. So looking at the Criminal Justice Commission, the Behavioral Health Deflection Grant Program, there is a $46.9 million ask that was developed by AOC, and that represents an increase of $6.9 million over what was included in the governor's recommended budget. While this is a proposed increase, we think that given the attention around deflection programs and the strong coalition pushing for that funding, we feel like we have a better chance of securing that increase than we might with other budget line items that where we're asking for an increase. So we're going to continue tracking that closely. The jail-based medication for opioid use disorder grant program, that funding, the funding included in the governor's recommended budget, it actually represents a decrease from when the program was created in the 2024 legislative session. At this point, there's really not a coalition pushing for an increase to that funding level, so we are supporting what's in the GRB, and we expect to rely on that program in the upcoming biennium, although we have not in the past. So looking at specialty courts, as you all know, Washington County has several specialty courts, some of which are funded in part through this grant program. And I also need to point out there was a copy and paste error on this slide that led to a typo. The ask that we are supporting for that budget line item is $6.9 million. And that's the current service level budget for that line item.
Okay, we got it.
Yep. And yeah, court security was also, that was on the last slide. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Carly. Thanks.
Just keep being tireless. Tireless is terrific. Keep running all the way through the race, all the way through the tape. Keep going. Carly, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Commissioners, for the record, my name is Carly Silva Gabrielson, one of your government relations managers, and I'm going to touch on the housing services budget priorities that we have been supporting here in the legislature. They are asks that have been made by the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. However, they are aligned with the priorities of our county, so we have been helping advocate and uplift these. The first I want to cover is the housing capital investments, which are encompassed in HB 5505. That is the general obligation bond fund. And the three priorities here are addressing homelessness within the permanent supportive housing, which is an $80 million ask, and then 2 affordable housing focuses funded by LIFT proceeds. One supporting LIFT rental expansion, which is a $704 million ask, and then one for LIFT home ownership, which is a $100 million ask. So we have submitted testimony on these items and look forward to them advancing. Next slide, please. I also want to take the opportunity to highlight the housing capital investments within HB 5531. This is the lottery bond bill, and of extreme importance to the county and the entire state is the Affordable Housing Preservation Fund, which is a $293 million ask. And then also the Housing Infrastructure Fund, which is a $100 million ask and will be a fund that local governments can tap into through loans, grants, and forgivable loans to help fund infrastructure to meet our housing development goals. Next slide, please.
Do those seem like they've got legs and they're moving forward?
They do, yes. There's been really great work done this legislative session on behalf from a broad coalition to uplift these items. Of particular interest is the Housing Preservation Fund, which has a lot of momentum here in the legislature, and also the Housing Infrastructure Fund does have broad support as well. I think there is a recognition from the legislature that that is something that has been underfunded in the past and that we really need to be uplifting in order, again, to meet our housing production goals. Thank you for that question, Commissioner. Next slide. And I'll turn this back over to Pablo, I believe.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so I'll just go ahead and do the courthouse planning piece of this. I think, was Aaron going to pick up the rest of this? Apologies for not being clear on that.
Carly, we'll pick it up. Go ahead, Pablo, do the courthouse.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so for the courthouse planning, replacement planning project, we have developed quite a strong coalition around that. We have 14 legislators that signed on to a letter to the Ways and Means Committee co-chairs, the subcommittee chairs, and the presiding officers urging funding for that project. And based on what we're hearing, it sounds like there is still a solid chance that we can get that funding, but of course the revenue forecast makes anything difficult. This is a relatively small ask compared to many other capital projects, $1.25 million. So that also puts us in a better place. And I think, as we move forward, one thing we're trying to do is pull a little bit more attention from local media around this project, just to kind of hype up the importance of this project and show the Ways and Means co-chairs that this is something that there's a public interest in beyond just Washington County's advocacy. So more to come on that.
Thanks, Pablo. And I'll address these other two. We are really excited about the momentum behind the Scoggins Valley Park Visitor Center ask. That is a $1.7 million matching ask, and that project has been filed on our behalf by Representative McLean, who is passionate about the project. We are finalizing our signatures for that letter, but there has been particular interest from the delegation on the water safety components that would be provided at the visitor center. So certainly a project that would be just wonderful for the entire region and increase livability. Additionally, the fairgrounds phase 1B of the construction, which is a larger ask, about $15 million, is gaining a lot of support. Representative Edwards, one of our newer members of the delegation, filed that on our behalf and understands both the need to modernize the fairgrounds and to meet the needs of the agricultural community and our 4J and horse program, 4H and horse program, but also the service that the county can provide for emergency evacuations for the region. So that's also being supported. I would say that Scoggins and the courthouse certainly are our priorities, and the delegation are very well aware of that, but we do hope that all three projects advance. Next slide, please. And I'll turn it to my colleague, Tracy.
Great. Thank you, Carly. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and members of the board for Clean Water Services. For the record, Tracy Rainey, Government Relations Manager for Clean Water Services. thank you for this opportunity to provide a quick update on a few of our budget-related items and priorities, including our capital construction funding request that we've talked to the board about previously. We continue to work with Representative Susan McLean on a funding request to cover the remainder of the local share for the match funding that is necessary to complete the Western Washington County Inflow and Infiltration Project that's out in Forest Grove, but also serves the communities of Cornelius and Gaston. We have had great meetings on the project. We're seeking up to $2 million, and we can scale if necessary to take a lesser amount. One of the pieces I know that we're aware of is there's what we're hearing over $2 billion worth of lottery funding requests this session, and around 500 million, maybe a little less, of available lottery funds. So we know it's tight competition, but we are definitely making the case for that project and have had really good meetings so far. The agency budget priority we continue to work on is Senate Bill 5520, which is the budget for the Department of Environmental Quality. That bill actually already did move out of the subcommittee just this last week. It maintains current service levels, so that's really great news, especially where the Water Quality Division budget is concerned. The budget did not include the governor's requested funding for DEQ to essentially identify efficiencies for their permitting processes, including for stormwater, which was a priority for the governor to accelerate housing production. So we were a little surprised, but I also think not surprised to see that that was not included in the budget that the subcommittee passed out. I think just in light of the revenue forecast, as that would have been a new investment. So we're pleased with where that budget is landing. It's really good news in terms of just overall health for the agency and their ability to get permits out the door that are efficient and effective. Next slide, please. These are the priority policy bills that we continue to advocate for that have funding requests attached to them. These should be familiar to the board as we flagged these during previous updates. All of these bills are in the Ways and Means Committee process right now. We continue to watch and have conversations around which ones may be included as part of a larger water investment that Representative Ken Helm and Representative Mark Owens have been working to advance this session. Our number one priority continues to be House Bill 2169, which is the water reuse funding that is necessary to keep a position, a newly created position that was initially approved last long legislative session, which is a DEQ water reuse coordinator position. And that person is supposed to work to identify efficiencies and opportunities to better support water reuse projects across the state. So we're really, really hoping that that funding will be approved this session to keep that work going forward. If that is not approved, then that position would be lost. We are continuing to work to advance the PFAS biosolid study. If that bill does get a hearing in the subcommittee, we anticipate an amendment that would reduce the funding request from $800,000 to $410,000. And that is a reflection of local utilities that are going to be contributing to that study in order to get the price tag down, to give that bill the best shot that it has at the legislative process. We've talked about the septic loan funding bill. Again, just a reminder, this is for low-income households to repair or replace septic systems or to connect to a public sewer system. Without that funding, that program will not have continued funding going forward. The low-income water and sewer rate assistance would be technically new funding for this session. There have been federal funds previously, but never state funds invested in a low-income water sewer ratepayer assistance program. There is a chance that this could be included within a water package, as I mentioned, from Representative Helm and Representative Owens. So we continue to advocate with a coalition to advance that. And then finally, I'll note the water workforce investment. This would be funding to invest in community college and workforce investment boards to help advance programs to develop future water workforce professionals. So something that's very much needed and lacking, but that would be new funding. So I'm not sure we'll see if that one gets through the session. But we'll continue to have those conversations and work in coalitions to advance that. Any questions before I hand it back?
Yeah, we have a couple. Go ahead,
Yes.
Commissioner Treese.
Thank you, Tracy, for your presentation here. On the HB 2947, you said that the cost of that was being, for lack of a better term, brought down by several utilities. Can you identify the utilities?
I can get the list to you. I know that Clean Water Services does have some funding that we're able to, I think, use for that. And I'll look to Elizabeth as she was part of that conversation. Clackamas Water Environment Services, I believe Rogue Valley Sewer System, but I'll get you a full list of who they are. And it's, all amounts that are 10,000 or 15,000 or so from a number of jurisdictions.
But we are participating in that.
We are participating in that.
We will have skin in the game on that, should the state decide to fund it.
I'd just like to know how much when you have a chance.
Yes.
And then my question is back on water reuse. Could you remind me what other jurisdictions in the state are like us interested in seeing that position continue?
This one has a really, really big coalition of supporters from municipalities. I know there's a number that are in Southern Oregon. Again, I think Rogue Valley. Oh gosh, I can get you a coalition letter. It's countless, including agricultural partners as well as environmental organizations too.
Yeah.
So
what's really on? Thank you. What's really on my mind is just with the AOC board retreat coming up. I'll be there on Monday, June 2nd, and it always helps to remind folks that we have a lot of common interests. So that's that's my motivation behind asking.
That's fantastic. I will get you that letter. Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. Okay, onward we go.
Transition slide. Next up, Carly.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'd like to take the opportunity to update you on the transportation package. Work is continuing, and the new committee, the Joint Committee on Transportation Reinvestment, held its first meeting today. Just got out about an hour ago, and they reviewed the findings from the audit of the Oregon Department of Transportation, which I look forward to diving in and sending you a full report on. And I just wanted to flag that the new committee, the JCT on Reinvestment, is a special committee that was created in particular to introduce and deliberate and hopefully shepherd across the finish line the transportation package. This special committee does not operate with a standard deadline, so there's a little bit more flexibility on timeline. As we saw last week, the co-chairs of the committees released a memo that detailed a new proposal to legislative leadership of that called Cap and Trade, which they're dubbing here in the state as Cap and Invest. It will be a new revenue mechanism that would fund the state highway transportation sources, wildfire mitigation, pedestrian safety, transit rail, and other priorities. There are a lot of details that we don't yet know, and reactions have been mixed. Many in the transportation coalitions are concerned about a complex proposal being added at such a late stage of the legislative session. However, we are awaiting further details. Despite these most recent kind of changes and a little bit of uncertainty, the forthcoming bill, which will be HB 2025, is expected to be released next week, and we are being told to anticipate that public hearings will begin on the 9th, 10th, and 11th. The new committee, the JCT on Reinvestment, will maintain the same schedule, so we will be in the evenings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then focusing on Monday and Tuesday. And I think with that, I will turn it back over to Tracy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carly. I'm just quickly going to mention just the outcome of two housing bills I know that we flagged for the board previously. Senate Bill 974 was one that could have had really significant impacts on a number of jurisdictions and local governments, including Clean Water Services. That bill has moved out of the House Housing Committee, so it is on to its second chamber for a floor vote on the House. The bill has been amended and is significantly improved from where it was initially introduced. As initially introduced, it had a really challenging shot clock for jurisdictions to approve final engineering plans, and would have allowed for applicants to seek engineering costs and attorney fees if those deadlines were not met. Also would have made the approval of final engineering plans a limited land use decision where it is not currently subject to any kind of land use process or appeals. And then would have also amended waivers for design standards that developers could seek, which always for us flags concerns over stormwater that could be interpreted to be a design feature as opposed to something required for permit compliance. So all of the issues that we had flagged largely have been addressed in the bill. They did take out the engineering costs, the time clocks, the shot clock is there, but it is very workable, at least from our staff's analysis and review. So at this point, we are not supportive of the bill, but we are, a heartburn has gone down significantly on that one. House Bill 2658 has moved forward as well. It had a work session last week. So it is also moving on to now the Senate floor for vote. That bill, I think, has very broad language that could cause some challenges, but essentially what it's looking to do is avoid duplication of work or investment where a local government has planned to advance a public improvement, has planned for, designed that, and has funds to pay for that. Again, what it's looking to do is make sure that the local government is not having a private party then come in and have to duplicate that work and pay for that or do that engineering and design work again. Again, the language though is very broad, so I don't foresee it's going to cause immediate issues. I do again see that there could be some complications down the road. I think there was a lot of work being done to try and narrow the language. Unfortunately, that did not happen on the Senate side. So not great news to report there. Good news on Senate Bill 974 though. And I think with that, unless there's questions, I'll hand it over to Erin.
Okay. Seeing no questions, talking too fast to let them. Just a reminder that there are a limited number of committees that can go to work right now, and Ways and Means is the vast majority of what's happening. As Carly noted, the Special Joint Committee on Transportation Reinvestment is also outside of all these deadlines. And then the place where bills are sitting for the political process to political is in the Rules Committee. And then Revenue gets to do their tightening of all of the revenue raising and or adjustments that they want to make. There was an accidental leaving no deadlines for the Committee on Addiction and Community Safety Response, but they still tried to get their work done. So next big headline, we'll be back on the 17th to provide a final legislative update. We're hoping the next day they'll meet their goals for sine die, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that either. The constitutional deadline for that is the end of the 29th, and then we will be back in July. Yes, sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
I understand all of this. I'm wondering, in your all of your expertise and your wonderful crystal balls, between now, May 27th, and that hopeful June 18th, on a scale of we just don't know, but appreciate that if we need you to, you'll do it, to who knows, or make up your own scale. I don't care. What I'm really wondering is, do you think you're going to need any of us to do the old phone tree between now and June 18th? Is there still a chance that you might need to pull that lever, or is it just we continue to be in your very able, tremendously tireless, terrific hands?
I will never say that we will not need you to be pulling that lever. The chances of it happening are reducing daily, but there is still a chance that we will have to have some targeted phone calls from one or all of you to various members of, if we can just shove things over the finish line with much force as we possibly can, we will pull you.
Blow on the ink so it dries faster.
Yeah, somehow magically, if you find more money for the state, steal it all for us. Thank you. Oh, no. But there's a lot less policy work going on. It's a matter of what's in Ways and Means that needs to find the limited funding that it can. It's going to be the big place where we'll still see the potential for needing to make some specific phone calls. Fortunately, our leadership is real attuned to Washington County, since so many of them represent at least a portion of their district represents Washington County. But with that, if they do decide to sine die before the 17th, we may decide to not make you listen to us when you're also doing budget that day. But we will come back in July with a work session to tell you how we all fared and where we see our next steps.
What happened?
What happened is the summary, the wrap up, the dear Lord, please don't make us come back for special session. With that, anything further, any other questions? We appreciate.
I'll speak for the board. We are very grateful for Team Washington County and Clean Water Services. Keep going. We know you're not done. We know there's more work to be done, and we're here to help.
And we'd also like to extend our gratitude for buying us enough time that the whole team could get in front of a computer before we started. So I didn't have to talk.
Aaron, as part of the July discussion, if that's when it happens, I think it'd be good to kind of just debrief how how the commission, at least I would appreciate knowing, did our engagement help this year? Were there things we collectively could have been doing or done better? Like, just kind of what's the team's sort of summary of that and how we can engage better for the next session?
We will bring that as part of it. We will give you all a report card.
Yeah, I would ditto with that one. Sorry, I had a kid-related emergency pickup I had to make, but I missed your presentation. But I'll go back and watch. But thank you for your presentation, and I want to ditto this. I think it's a good idea. And I think you did do this is what happened, kind of.
Well, yeah, and we will provide more explicit moments for that conversation about how you've gone from your training in January to your effect in July. All right, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Aaron. Okay. We've already done board and leadership communication. Let me ask Commissioner Fry if you had anything you wanted to make sure you contributed.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. I just want to say that my emergency wasn't anything dangerous. It was just a kid-related pickup, so I appreciate your grace on that. And in terms of my own update, since you've already did it, and I'm happy to move into executive session. Report back next time. Nothing burning agenda items for me to pause everything that's been in place.
Okay, great. Well, we're still ahead of schedule. Courtney, is your team ready?
Yes.
Okay. Well, without further ado, then, I would ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F for the purposes of discussing exempt records for a Washington County executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Well.